The transport ship moved slowly through space. It was not a big ship. It carried families from the human colonies back to Earth. Most people on the ship were sleeping. The long journey through space was boring. Captain HFY watched the human ship on his screen. His yellow eyes glowed with hunger. The Valoran captain was tall and covered in green scales. His claws tapped against the metal chair. Around him, his crew waited for orders. "Look at them," HFY said to his second officer. "So slow, so weak. These humans think they are safe in space." Commander Thokran stood beside him. He was smaller than the captain, but meaner. His teeth were sharp and white. "Should we take the whole ship, Captain?" "No," HFY said. "Too much work. We only need a few. The young ones sell better in the slave markets." The Valoran ship was 10 times bigger than the human transport. It had thick armor and powerful weapons. The Valorans had used ships like this to attack many worlds. They were good at taking prisoners. They were good at making other species afraid. For 200 years, the Valorans had ruled this part of space. They took what they wanted. They enslaved who they wanted. No one could stop them. The reptile aliens were strong and smart and cruel. "Begin the attack," Captain HFY ordered. The Valoran warship fired its weapons. Blue energy beams hit the human transport. The small ship shook and its engines stopped working. Red lights flashed inside the human ship. People screamed. Hyunwoo woke up when the ship started shaking. The 8-year-old boy sat up in his bed. His mother and father were not in their room. They had gone to the main deck for dinner. Hyunwoo was supposed to stay in bed and sleep. The Avibam boy looked out the small window. He saw a huge ship next to them. It had strange markings on its side. The ship looked like a monster with glowing red eyes. "Mom?" Hyunwoo called out. But his parents could not hear him. Metal crashed against metal. Someone was cutting into their ship. Hyunwoo heard strange voices speaking in a language he did not know. The voices sounded angry and rough. The door to his room broke open. A tall alien walked in. It had green skin and yellow eyes. Its mouth was full of sharp teeth. The alien wore black armor and carried a big weapon. Commander Thokran looked down at the small human child. The boy had black hair and dark eyes. He was wearing blue pajamas with pictures of spaceships on them. The child looked so small and helpless. "Perfect," Thokran said in his own language. "This one will be easy to train." Hyunwoo stared at the alien. He had never seen anything like it before. His father had told him stories about aliens, but this creature was scary. It smelled like metal and something else. Something bad. "Where are my mom and dad?" Hyunwoo asked. The alien did not understand human words. It reached down with one clawed hand and grabbed the boy's arm. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to show control. Other Valoran soldiers moved through the ship. They were looking for more prisoners. They found Hyunwoo's parents in the dining area with 20 other humans. The adults tried to fight back, but they had no weapons. They were just normal people going home. Captain HFY walked into the dining area. He was bigger than the other soldiers. His armor was silver instead of black. He looked at the humans, like they were animals in a cage. "Take only the children," he told his soldiers. "Kill the rest." The human adults screamed and cried. They tried to protect their children, but the Valoran weapons were too powerful. In 5 minutes, all the adults were dead. Only 3 human children remained alive. Hyunwoo heard the screaming. "Stop." He knew something terrible had happened. The alien holding him did not seem to care. It carried him through the broken doorway and into the Valoran ship. The inside of the alien ship was dark and cold. The walls were made of black metal. Strange lights blinked on and off. Everything smelled like oil and decay. Hyunwoo tried not to cry, but tears came anyway. Commander Thokran put the boy into a small cage. The cage was just big enough for Hyunwoo to sit down. 2 other human children were in cages nearby. A girl who looked 10 years old and a boy who looked 6. "Don't cry," the girl whispered to Hyunwoo. "It makes them happy when we cry." Hyunwoo wiped his eyes with his sleeve. He looked around the room. There were many cages, but most were empty. The walls had pictures of different aliens. Some looked like humans, others looked like monsters. "What do they want with us?" the 6-year-old boy asked. "They're going to sell us," the girl said quietly. "I heard my dad talking about aliens who take people and make them slaves." Yun-woo felt scared and angry at the same time. These creatures had hurt his parents. They had taken him away from his family, but he was just a little boy. What could he do against giant aliens with weapons and spaceships? The Valoran ship started moving, again. They were going away from the human transport, going to wherever these aliens lived. Yun-woo pressed his face against the bars of his cage and tried to remember everything he saw. Captain Kexval came to look at the prisoners. He seemed pleased with what he saw. 3 human children would bring good money at the slave markets. Young slaves were easier to train. They forgot their old lives faster. "Send a message to the markets on Valor Prime," the captain told Commander Thokran. "Tell them we have fresh human stock, young and healthy." "Yes, Captain," Thokran replied. "How long until we reach home?" 6 days, Captain Kexval said. "Keep them alive and clean. Dead slaves are worth nothing." The captain walked away. He was already thinking about his next raid. There were many human colonies in this area of space. All of them were weak and unprotected. The Valorans could take whatever they wanted, but Captain Kexval did not know something important. He did not know that human children were different from other species young. He did not know that humans became very dangerous when their children were threatened. Most importantly, he did not know that every human ship carried a special transmitter. When the ship was attacked, the transmitter sent a signal across space. The signal went straight to Earth and the human military. The signal carried one simple message: human children have been taken. Now the hunt would begin. Old Vexithara sat in his library on the space station. Books and data screens covered every wall. The ancient alien had lived for 300 years. He had seen many wars and many mistakes, but he had never seen a mistake this big. Vexithara was not like other Valorans. His scales were gray with age. His eyes were cloudy, but still sharp. He spent his days reading old records and ancient stories. Most Valorans thought he was crazy. They called him the Mad Scholar. But Vexithara remembered things. He remembered stories that others had forgotten. Stories about species that looked weak but were really dangerous. Stories about wars that ended badly for everyone. The emergency signal came to his station 3 hours after the attack. Captain Kexval had sent a report about his successful raid. 3 human children captured, all adult humans killed. The ship was heading back to Valor Prime. Vexithara read the report and his blood turned cold. His clawed hands shook as he typed into his computer. He searched through thousands of old files. Files from wars that happened long ago. Files that most Valorans never read. No, Vexithara whispered. "This cannot be happening again." He found the file he was looking for. It was marked Korthak Empire, Final War Report. The Korthaks had been the strongest species in the galaxy 200 years ago. They had ruled over 50 worlds. Their armies were huge and powerful. But the Korthaks made one mistake. They took children from a planet called Earth. Vexithara read the old report again. His hands were shaking more now. The Korthak Emperor had laughed when he heard about the small blue planet. The humans looked so weak. They had no great armies, no powerful weapons, no space empire. So the Korthaks took some human children for their slave markets, just like Captain Kexval had done today. 3 weeks later, the Korthak Empire was gone. Completely destroyed. Their armies defeated, their worlds burned, their leaders dead. The few Korthaks who survived never spoke about what the humans had done to them. "I have to warn them," Vexithara said to himself. The old scholar tried to contact Captain Kexval, but the captain's ship was in hyperspace. No messages could reach him there. Vexithara tried to contact the Valoran High Command, but they were in a meeting. They could not be disturbed. Panic filled Vexithara's old heart. He sent messages to every Valoran leader he could find, but most of them ignored him. They thought he was just a crazy old alien who read too many stories. Meanwhile, On Captain Keksaval's ship, Hyunwoo sat quietly in his cage. He was not crying anymore. The 8-year-old boy was thinking. He watched the alien guards walk around the room. He counted how many steps they took. He listened to their voices and tried to understand their words. The girl in the cage next to him was named Soo-jin. She was 10 years old and very brave. The boy in the third cage was named Min-ho. He was only 6 and still cried sometimes. "We need to be smart," Soo-jin whispered to the other children. "My father always said that humans are good at solving problems." Hyunwoo nodded. His father had told him the same thing. Humans were not the strongest or the fastest, but they were very good at thinking. They could find solutions when other species gave up. "Look at everything," Hyunwoo whispered back. "Remember everything. Maybe we can find a way out." Commander Thokren walked into the prison room. He looked at the 3 human children. They seemed so small and helpless, but something bothered him about the way they watched him. Their eyes were too smart, too aware. Most alien children cried all the time after being captured. They screamed for their parents. They tried to break their cages. These human children just watched and listened. It made Thokren feel uncomfortable. "Why don't they cry more?" he asked one of his guards. The guard shrugged. Maybe they are too scared to cry. But Thokren was not sure about that. He had captured many different species over the years. Scared children acted different than this. These human children seemed to be studying everything around them. Back on the space station, Vexithara finally got through to someone important. General Vortax was the commander of all Valoran military forces. He was a big alien with red scales and angry eyes. "What do you want, old scholar?" General Vortax asked. "I have real work to do." "General, you must listen to me," Vexithara said. "Captain Keksaval has made a terrible mistake. He took human children." "So what?" the general replied. "Humans are weak. They have no army that can threaten us." "That is what the Korthax thought," Vexithara said. "Do you remember what happened?" "To them?" General Vortax laughed. "Those are just stories, old man. Fairy tales to scare children." "They are not stories," Vexithara shouted. "I have the real reports. The humans destroyed the entire Korthak Empire in 3 weeks. 50 worlds, General. 50 worlds turned to ash because they took human children." "Impossible," the general said. "No species is that powerful." "The humans are not like other species," Vexithara explained. "They look weak, but they are apex predators from a death world, and their children. Their children are protected by something terrible." General Vortax was getting angry. "You are wasting my time with old stories and myths." "General, please," Vexithara begged. "Send a message to Captain Keksaval. Tell him to return the human children. Tell him to do it now before it is too late." But General Vortax had already ended the call. He thought Vexithara was just a crazy old alien who read too many books. Vexithara sat alone in his library. He looked at the ancient files on his screen. Pictures of burned Korthak worlds. Reports of impossible battles. Stories of a species that seemed peaceful until someone threatened their young. Then the stories became nightmares. The old scholar tried to contact other Valoran leaders, but nobody would listen. They all thought the same thing. Humans were weak. Earth was just a small planet far away. What could they possibly do? On Earth, alarms were ringing in military bases around the planet. The emergency signal from the transport ship had reached them. 3 human children had been taken by aliens. The location was known. The species was identified. Admiral Park Jin-ho read the report in his office. He was a tall man with gray hair and hard eyes. He had fought in many wars, but his face had never looked this cold before. "Activate Protocol 7, the Admiral said to his aide. The aide's face went pale. "Sir, are you sure? Protocol 7 has never been used before." "Human children have been taken," Admiral Park said quietly. "That is exactly what Protocol 7 was made for." All across Earth, military ships began preparing for war. But this would not be like other wars. This would be something the galaxy had never seen before. The hunt was about to begin. Admiral Park Jin-ho stood in the war room deep inside Earth's military headquarters. Around him, dozens of officers worked at computer screens. Red lights flashed on the walls. The sound of alarms filled the air. "Report," the admiral said to his chief of staff. "3 human children taken by Valoran raiders," Colonel Kim replied. "The transport ship Peaceful Journey was attacked 6 hours ago. All adult passengers are confirmed dead." Admiral Park's jaw tightened. He had 2 children of his own. The thought of any human child in alien hands made his blood burn with anger. "What do we know about the Valorans?" he asked. "Reptilian species from the Velor system," Colonel Kim answered. "They have been raiding weaker civilizations for 200 years. They think humans are just another weak species to exploit. They are about to learn how wrong they are," Admiral Park said quietly. The admiral walked to a large screen showing a map of space. The Valoran territory was marked in red. It covered 12 star systems and 38 worlds. Their military had over 500 ships. On paper, they looked strong, but Admiral Park knew something the Valorans did not know. Numbers meant nothing when you were fighting humans who were protecting their children. "Activate the Reaper Squadron," Admiral Park ordered. Captain Kim Da-hai was in her quarters when the call came. She was Admiral Park's daughter, but she had earned her rank through skill and courage. At 28 years old, she was the youngest captain in the human fleet. "Da-hai," her father's voice said over the communication system. "Report to the war room immediately. We have a Protocol 7 situation." Captain Kim's blood went cold. Protocol 7 meant human children were in danger. She had trained for this moment her entire career, but she had hoped it would never come. She ran through the corridors of the military base. Other officers were running too. Word was spreading quickly through the human military. Someone had taken human children. Now there would be war. In the war room, Captain Kim found the rest of the Reaper Squadron waiting. Master Sergeant Lee Taemin was checking his weapons. Lieutenant Colonel Choi Ye-jin was studying star charts. Major Han Seok-jin was talking quietly with the intelligence officers. These were the best soldiers humanity had ever produced. They had trained for years to fight enemies that seemed impossible to defeat. They specialized in what military experts called asymmetric warfare. They could do things that other species thought were impossible. "Listen carefully," Admiral Park said to the assembled officers. 3 human children have been taken by Valoran raiders. The children are alive and being transported to Valoran space for sale in their slave markets. The room fell silent. Every officer in the room had families. Every one of them understood what this meant. "The Valorans think humans are weak," Admiral Park continued. "They are about to discover their mistake. Captain Kim will lead the rescue mission. You have unlimited resources and full authority to use any methods necessary." Captain Kim stood up. "What are our rules of engagement, sir?" "There are no rules," Admiral Park replied. "Bring our children home. Make sure this never happens again." While the human military prepared for war, strange things were happening across the galaxy. Other alien species were receiving emergency broadcasts. The messages all said the same thing. "Human children have been taken. Stay away from Valoran space." The Altarians were an old and wise species. They had been allies with humans for 50 years. When they heard about the captured children, they immediately ordered all their ships to leave Valoran territory. "The humans are going to war," Altarian Admiral Zethra told his captains. "When humans fight to protect their young, even we cannot predict what they will do. We must give them space to work." The Kreth Empire received the same message. The Kreth were known throughout the galaxy as fierce warriors. They feared nothing and fought anyone. But when they heard that human children were in danger, they too pulled back from Valoran space. "I have fought humans before," Kreth General Moltar told his officers. "They are dangerous enough when they fight for money or territory. But when they fight for their children, they become something else, something terrible." Even the peaceful Silith Confederation sent warnings to their trade ships. "Avoid all contact with Valoran forces," the message said. "The humans are hunting and we do not want to be in their way." Back on the Valoran ship, Hyunwoo continued to watch and learn. The 8-year-old boy had figured out some basic words in the Valoran language. He understood that the aliens were taking them somewhere to be sold. But Hyunwoo was not afraid, anymore. His father had taught him about human history, about how humans survived when stronger predators tried to hunt them. Humans were smart, humans worked together, and humans never gave up when family was in danger. "Sujin," he whispered to the girl in the next cage. "I think help is coming." "How do you know?" she whispered back. "Because we're human," Hyunwoo replied. "And humans protect their children." Commander Thakran noticed that the human children seemed calmer now. This worried him. In his experience, prisoners who stopped being afraid were prisoners who were planning something. He reported his concerns to Captain Keksaval, but the captain laughed. "What can 3 small children do? They are locked in cages. They have no weapons. You worry too much, Thakran." But Commander Thakran had been a soldier for a long time. He had learned to trust his instincts. Something about these human children felt dangerous, even though they were just small and weak. On Earth, the human war fleet was almost ready. 50 of humanity's most advanced warships were being loaded with supplies and weapons. The ships looked smaller than Valoran warships, but they carried technology that the galaxy had never seen before. Captain Kim stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Retribution. Around her, the best officers in the human military worked at their stations. Every one of them had volunteered for this mission. "Captain," Lieutenant Colonel Choi reported, "all ships are ready to depart. Set course for Valoran space," Captain Kim ordered. Maximum speed. The human fleet jumped into hyperspace. They would reach Valoran territory in 4 days. The Valorans had no idea they were coming. Admiral Park watched the fleet disappear into hyperspace. He had sent his daughter and his best officers into danger, but he knew they would succeed. They had to succeed. Human children were depending on them. The hunt had begun. Captain Kim Da-hee sat in her command chair as her fleet traveled through hyperspace. They had been traveling for 2 days. In 2 more days, they would reach Valoran space, but Captain Kim was not waiting until then to begin the war. "Lieutenant, Colonel Choi," she said to her communications officer, "are you ready to send our message?" "Yes, Captain," Choi Ye-jin replied. "We have hacked into every Valoran communication network, every screen, every radio, every computer in their territory. We'll receive this message." Captain Kim had spent hours preparing what she would say. The message had to be perfect. It had to show the Valorans exactly what kind of mistake they had made. "Begin recording," Captain Kim ordered. The recording started with something unexpected. It was a video of Hyunwoo from before he was captured. The 8-year-old boy was playing in his family's garden on the colony world. He was laughing and running around with a small dog. His parents were watching him with loving smiles. The video showed a normal human family, a happy child living a peaceful life. Nothing threatening, nothing dangerous, just pure innocence. Then Captain Kim's voice began to speak. Her voice was calm and quiet, but there was something cold in it, something that made listeners feel afraid. "This is Captain Kim Da-hee of the Terran Defense Corps," she said. "You have taken this child. His name is Hyunwoo. He is 8 years old. He likes to build toy spaceships and read stories about dinosaurs." The video continued to show scenes of Hyunwoo playing and being happy. But Captain Kim's voice made the images feel ominous. "You think you understand what you have done?" Captain Kim continued. "You think you have captured 3 weak children from a weak species. You are wrong." The video changed. Now it showed detailed maps of every Valoran military base. It showed the names and faces of Valoran leaders. It showed the exact location of their homeworld's capital city. "We know where you live," Captain Kim said. "We know where your leaders sleep. We know where your children go to school." The information was impossible. The Valorans had kept their military secrets hidden for centuries. How could the humans know all of this? "You have 72 hours, Captain Kim said. "Return our children unharmed to the coordinates we are sending you. If you do this, we will forget this incident ever happened." The video paused. For 10 seconds, there was only silence and the image of Hyunwoo's smiling face. "If you do not, Return our children, Captain Kim continued. You will learn why every species in this galaxy fears to wake a sleeping human. The message ended with coordinates in empty space near the Valoran border. Then every screen went black. The message played on every device in Valoran space at the same time. Millions of Valorans saw it. From the highest general to the lowest soldier, everyone heard Captain Kim's quiet, cold voice. General Vortax watched the message in his command center. His red scales turned pale. The information the humans had shown was completely accurate. Military secrets that only a few high-ranking officers knew. How is this possible? He asked his intelligence chief. I don't know, General, the officer replied. Our computer networks are completely secure. No one should be able to hack them. But somehow the humans had done exactly that. They knew everything about Valoran military operations. Every ship location, every base, every weapon. On Captain Kexval's ship, the crew watched the message with growing fear. They were still 2 days away from home. The human fleet could intercept them at any time. It's just a bluff, Captain Kexval told his officers. Humans are weak. They have no real military power. But Commander Thokran was not so sure. The information in the message was too detailed, too accurate. These humans knew things that should have been impossible to know. Meanwhile, Hyunwoo and the other children had heard the message too. The Valoran guards had been watching it, and the children understood enough of the language to know what it meant. I told you help was coming, Hyunwoo whispered to Sujin and Minho. Who was that woman? Minho asked. A human soldier, Sujin replied. She's coming to save us. The children felt hopeful for the first time since their capture, but they also knew they could not just wait to be rescued. They had to be ready to help themselves. Hyunwoo had been studying the lock on his cage. It was electronic, controlled by a keypad near the door. He had watched the guards enter the code dozens of times. He was pretty sure he knew the right numbers. In other parts of Valoran space, the human message was causing panic. Valoran commanders received reports of impossible attacks on their outer bases. One military station reported that all their weapons had stopped working at the same time. The soldiers were not hurt, but every gun, every missile, every defense system was completely disabled. Another base found all their computer files changed. Instead of military data, every screen showed pictures of human children playing in parks and schools. The message was clear. We know where you are and we are coming. A third station reported that their entire defensive satellite network had been hacked. The satellites were still working, but they were no longer under Valoran control. Someone else was watching through their cameras now. Lieutenant Colonel Choi Ye-jin coordinated these attacks from her ship. She was an expert in what humans called information warfare. She could break into any computer system and make it do whatever she wanted. How many Valoran bases have we compromised? Captain Kim asked. All of them, Choi replied with a small smile. Every military installation in their territory is now under our observation. They cannot move a ship without us knowing about it. Major Han Seok-jin was handling a different kind of psychological warfare. He was spreading stories through Valoran civilian networks. Stories about what happened to the Korthak Empire. Stories about human military capabilities. The stories were mostly true, but Major Han added details that made them even more frightening. Soon, every Valoran citizen had heard about the terrible things that happened when someone threatened human children. Master, Sergeant Lee Taemin was preparing for the real fighting that would come later. He was checking weapons and training the assault teams. If the Valorans did not surrender the children, Lee's job would be to take them back by force. How long until we reach Valoran space? Captain Kim asked her navigation officer. 36 hours, Captain, came the reply. And how long until our 72-hour deadline? 48 hours. Captain Kim nodded. The timing was perfect. If the Valorans were smart, they would surrender the children before the human fleet arrived. If they were not smart, they would learn what happened to species that threatened human young. On the old space station, Vexithara watched the human message with a mixture of fear and relief. Finally, someone was taking action. but he knew it might already be too late. The ancient scholar sent one more desperate message to General A. Vortax. General, you must listen to the humans. Return their children now, before it is too late for all of us. But General Vortax was too proud to listen. He believed Velaran military power could handle any threat. He had no idea what was really coming for them. The psychological warfare was working. All across Valoran space, soldiers were deserting their posts. Civilians were fleeing to other star systems. Even some military officers were beginning to question whether they should fight humans who were protecting their children. But the leadership remained stubborn. They could not believe that humans posed a real threat. They would learn the truth very soon. The 72 hours were almost over. Captain Kexaval's ship was still 1 day away from Valoran space. The captain paced around his bridge like a caged animal. His crew watched him nervously. "Sir," Commander Thokren said quietly, "maybe we should consider returning the human children." Captain Kexaval spun around with fury in his yellow eyes. "Never. We are Velarans. We do not surrender to weak species." But even as he spoke, Kexaval felt doubt creeping into his mind. The human message had been too confident, too detailed. What if these humans really were dangerous? In the prison room, Hyunwoo was ready to make his move. For days he had been watching the guards and studying the ship. He knew their schedules. He knew their weaknesses. Now it was time to act. The 8-year-old boy waited until the guard change at midnight. For exactly 3 minutes, no one would be watching the prison room. During those 3 minutes, Hyunwoo would escape. He had memorized the keypad code from watching the guards. His small fingers quickly pressed the right numbers. The cage door opened with a soft click. Sujin and Minho stared at him in amazement. "How did you do that?" Sujin whispered. "I watched and remembered," Hyunwoo whispered back. "Now we need to get out of here." The boy was small enough to crawl through the air vents. He had seen maintenance workers use the vents during his time in the cage. If he could reach the ship's computer systems, he could cause problems for the aliens. "Stay here and pretend to be sleeping," Hyunwoo told the other children. "If anyone comes, act like I'm still in my cage." Hyunwoo climbed into the air vent system. The metal passages were dark and narrow, but he was small enough to fit. He crawled through the ship toward the engine room. His father had taught him about spaceship engines. Most ships had the same basic design. If you knew where to look, you could find ways to cause problems. Meanwhile, in space near the Valoran border, the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace. 50 ships appeared as if from nowhere. They moved in perfect formation toward Valoran territory. Captain Kim stood on her bridge and looked at the enemy star system ahead. Somewhere in that space, 3 human children were being held prisoner. It was time to bring them home. "All ships report status," she ordered. "Reaper 1 ready for combat," came the first reply. "Reaper 2 standing by," said the second. One by one, all 50 ships confirmed they were ready for battle. The most advanced military force humanity had ever assembled was prepared to fight. "Begin Phase 1, Captain Kim ordered. Phase 1 was not about destroying enemy ships. It was about showing the Valorans exactly how hopeless their situation was. All across Valoran space, military installations suddenly lost power. Not just weapons systems, but everything. Lights, computers, life support. Every base went dark at exactly the same moment. Then the power came back on. But when it did, every Valoran screen showed the same image. A human child's smiling face. The message was clear. "We can turn off your power whenever we want." General Vortax watched his command. Center go dark and then light up again. His hands were shaking as he stared at the human child on his main screen. "How are they doing this?" he demanded from his officers. "We don't know, sir," his chief of staff replied. "Our systems are completely compromised." At the same time, every Velaran military ship received a message. Their engines shut down for exactly 60 seconds, then restarted. Again, the message was clear. "We control your ships now." On Captain Kexaval's ship, the engines suddenly stopped working. The ship drifted in space for 1 minute while the crew panicked. Then the engines came back online. What is happening? Keksaval shouted at his engineer. I don't know, Captain, the engineer replied. Someone else is controlling our systems. That someone was Hyunwoo. The 8-year-old boy had reached the ship's computer core. His small hands worked quickly at the alien keyboard. He could not read all the Velaran words, but he understood how the systems worked. Hyunwoo sent a signal from the ship's communication. Array. It was a simple message that would reach the human fleet. This is Hyunwoo. I am here. Come find me. Captain Kim received the message on her bridge. Her heart filled with pride and relief. The boy was not just alive. He was fighting back. You track that signal? She asked her communications officer. Yes, Captain. We have the exact location of the Valoran ship. Then let's go get our children. The human fleet changed course toward Captain Keksaval's ship. They moved faster than any Valoran vessel could travel. Their engines used technology that the galaxy had never seen before. On the Valoran homeworld, panic was spreading. The government buildings had lost power 3 times in the last hour. Each time the screen showed human children when the power returned. The Valoran High Council met in emergency session. These were the most powerful leaders in Valoran space. But they looked scared and confused. The humans are making fools of us, one council member said. Our entire military is powerless against them. It's impossible, another replied. No species has technology this advanced. Old Vexithara was finally allowed to speak to the council. The ancient scholar looked at the frightened leaders with sad eyes. I warned you, he said quietly. I told you what would happen if you took human children. How could we know they were this dangerous, the council leader asked. Because I told you about the Korthak Empire, Vexthara replied. But you would not listen. Captain Keksaval's ship was trying to run away, but it was hopeless. The human fleet was much faster. Within 2 hours, 50 human warships surrounded the Valoran raider. Captain Kim opened a communication channel to the enemy ship. This is Captain Kim Dahai of the Terran Defense Corps, she said. You are completely surrounded. Return our children immediately. Captain Keksaval looked at the human ships on his screen. They were smaller than his ship, but there were so many of them, and they had already proven they could control his systems. We can negotiate, Keksaval said desperately. Perhaps we can reach an agreement. Your 72 hours are over, Captain Kim replied coldly. You had your chance to surrender. Now we take our children back. The human assault began, but it was not like any battle the Valorans had ever seen. The humans did not try to destroy the ship. Instead, they carefully cut through the hull in specific places. Master Sergeant Lee Taemin led the boarding party. His soldiers wore advanced armor and carried weapons that could stun rather than kill. Their mission was to rescue the children, not to destroy everything. The Velaran crew tried to fight back, but their weapons would not work. Every gun, every security system had been disabled by human computer specialists. In 6 minutes, the human soldiers had complete control of the Valoran ship. Not a single alien had been killed, but they were all helpless. Hyunwoo met the human soldiers in the engine room where he had been hiding. Are you here to save us? He asked. Yes, Master Sergeant, Lee replied with a smile. You did good work, boy. You made our job much easier. Sujin and Minho were rescued from their cages. All 3 children were frightened but unharmed. The human soldiers treated them gently and gave them warm blankets and food. Captain Kim came aboard the captured ship to see the children personally. When she saw them safe, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Are you okay? She asked Hyunwoo. Yes, the boy replied. When can we go home? Right now, Captain Kim said. But their work was not finished. The Valorans had to understand what they had done wrong. Admiral Park Jin-ho arrived in Valoran space with the main human battle fleet. 100 more ships appeared from hyperspace. The combined human force now numbered 150 vessels. The Admiral's flagship was massive compared to the other human ships. It was called the Defender, and it carried enough firepower to destroy entire planets. But Admiral Park had not come to destroy worlds. He had come to teach a lesson. The 3 rescued children were brought aboard the Defender. Admiral Park hugged his daughter Captain Kim, then knelt down to speak with Hyunwoo, Sujin, and Minho. Are you hurt? He asked them gently. No, sir, Hyunwoo replied. The aliens were mean, but they didn't hurt us. Good, Admiral Park said. You were very brave, all of you. The children looked tired but strong. They had been through something terrible, but they had survived. More than that, they had helped in their own rescue. This was what made humans special. Even their children could think and fight when they needed to. Admiral Park stood up and looked out at the Valoran fleet. Dozens of enemy ships had gathered near their homeworld. They looked ready to fight, but Admiral Park knew they were really terrified. Open a channel to the Valoran High Council, he ordered. The communication screen showed the scared faces of Valoran leaders. They sat in their council chamber trying to look brave, but their yellow eyes showed fear. I am Admiral Park Jin-ho, he said calmly. You took our children. That was a mistake. The head of the Valoran Council spoke up. Admiral, we are prepared to negotiate. Perhaps we can reach a peaceful solution. The time for negotiation is over, Admiral Park replied. You had 72 hours to return our children. Instead, you chose to ignore our warning. The Admiral paused and looked directly into the camera. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet, but filled with cold authority. For 200 years, you have terrorized weaker species. You have taken children from their families and sold them as slaves. You thought you could do the same to human children. On the council screen, some of the Valorans looked ashamed. Others still looked defiant. We did not know humans were so powerful, one council member said. That is not an excuse, Admiral Park replied. You knew taking children was wrong. You did it anyway because you thought you were stronger than us. The Admiral gestured to his officers and new images appeared on the council's screens. These showed every Valoran military base, every ship, every weapon system. Your entire military is now under our control, Admiral Park said. Every weapon you have built in the past 200 years is useless. We can disable them all with a single command. To prove his point, every Valoran warship in the system suddenly went dark. Their engines stopped, their weapons powered down. For 5 minutes, the entire Valoran military was helpless. Then the ships came back online. The message was clear. We are being merciful. We could have left you floating in space forever. This is what happens when you threaten human children, Admiral Park continued. This is why every other species in the galaxy warned you to stay away from us. Old Vexithera was allowed to speak to the human admiral. The ancient scholar's voice shook as he talked. Admiral, I tried to warn them, Vexithera said. I told them about the Korthak Empire, but they would not listen. I know, Admiral Park replied. You tried to prevent this, for that you have our respect. The Admiral turned back to the Valoran Council. His expression became harder. Here are our terms, he said. You will relocate your entire species to your homeworld. You will give up all claims to other star systems. Your ability to travel between worlds is permanently revoked. The Valoran leaders gasped. This would end their empire completely. That is too harsh, the council leader protested. Our people live on many worlds. Your people will be relocated safely, Admiral Park said. We are not like you. We do not separate families, but your days of conquering other species are over. And if we refuse? Another council member asked. Admiral Park smiled, but it was not a kind smile. Look around you. Your weapons don't work. Your ships can't move without our permission. You have no choice but to accept our terms. The demonstration continued. Human ships appeared all over Valoran space, not to attack, but to observe. Every Valoran military installation found itself surrounded by human vessels. The humans did not fire a single shot. They didn't need to. Their technological superiority was absolute. Lieutenant Colonel Choi Ye-jin coordinated the dismantling of Valoran military capabilities. Every weapon system was disabled. Every warship was retrofitted with engines that could only travel within their home system. Major Han Seok-jin worked with alien refugee organizations to help relocate Valoran civilians. Despite their anger, the humans made sure no innocent Valorans were hurt during the process. Master Sergeant Lee Tae-min trained a new peacekeeping force made up of humans and friendly alien species. Their job would be to make sure the Velerans never again tried to raid other worlds. Hyunwoo watched all of this from the bridge of the Defender. The 8-year-old boy was fascinated by the human ships and their advanced technology. "Admiral," Hyunwoo said, "why are we being so nice to them? They tried to make us slaves." Admiral Park knelt down beside the boy. "Because that's what makes us different from them, Hyunwoo. We protect the innocent even when they come from species that hurt us. But we're still punishing them, right?" Sujin asked. "Yes," the Admiral replied. "They cannot be allowed to hurt other children ever again. But we don't need to be cruel to accomplish that." Captain Kim Da-hai stood with her father and the children. She felt proud of what humanity had accomplished. They had rescued their children and ended a threat to the galaxy, all without becoming monsters themselves. The relocation of Valoran civilization took 6 months. Human ships helped move millions of Valorans back to their homeworld. It was a massive operation, but the humans made sure it was done safely and humanely. During the relocation, something unexpected happened. Many Valorans began to understand what they had done wrong. Seeing human soldiers help Valoran families made them realize that humans were not the weak species they had thought. Some Valorans, led by old Vexithara, began working with humans to help other species that had been hurt by Valoran raids. They wanted to make up for the centuries of cruelty their people had inflicted. Captain Keksaval and his crew were put on trial for their crimes. But instead of execution, they were sentenced to work in rehabilitation centers, helping former slaves recover from their trauma. Commander Thokran, who had captured the human children, spent years learning about human culture and psychology. He wanted to understand how a species could be so fierce in protecting their young, yet so merciful to their enemies. The galaxy watched these events with amazement. The humans had demonstrated military power beyond anything anyone had imagined. But more importantly, they had shown restraint and compassion even toward those who had wronged them. Other species began to see humans in a new light. They were not just dangerous predators from a death world. They were a species that combined strength with wisdom, power with mercy. Hyunwoo, Sujin, and Minho returned to Earth as heroes. But they were also just children who wanted to go back to their normal lives. The experience had made them stronger and wiser, but they were still kids who liked to play and learn. Years later, Hyunwoo would become a starship engineer. Sujin would join the diplomatic corps, working to prevent conflicts between species. Minho would become a teacher, helping alien children learn about human culture. But for now, they were simply 3 children who had survived something terrible and come home safely. Old Vexithara wrote the final entry in his records about the incident. His words became part of galactic history. "Today we learned the truth about humans. They appear peaceful because nothing has been foolish enough to threaten what they truly care about. They appear weak because they have never needed to show their full strength. But when someone threatens their children, they become the most dangerous force in the galaxy." The Valorans thought they were predators hunting prey. They were wrong. They were prey who had stumbled into the territory of sleeping giants, and when those giants woke up to protect their young, even the strongest predators became helpless. Let this be a lesson to all species. Human children are not just protected by weapons and armies. They are protected by the absolute, unwavering love of a species that will cross any distance and fight any enemy to keep their young safe. Cross that line and discover that there is no force in the universe more terrifying than a human who is protecting their child. The story of the captured human children became legend throughout the galaxy. It was a story that reminded every species of a simple truth. Some lines should never be crossed. Human children were one of those lines, and now everyone knew it.